17-year-olds. They said because they can get a 22-year-old that's already used to the system, already seasoned, maybe wasn't getting as much burn.
Yeah.
And then gotta build them up and develop them instead of bringing you in and wasting 2 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not saying wasted, but nowadays that's how it is. Because you got grown ass men that are ready to come to your school.
They already proven. So that has like affected like the AAU scene because again it's not because again it used to be get on the AAU team and that's where you were going to get noticed and that's where you're going to get picked from and selected from and that's where you're going to get your scholarships offers and everything. But now, like coaches are wanting guys that are already proven. So you're better off already being in the system, and it doesn't matter which level at that, And I think that's the thing has changed as well.
Yeah.
Like I said, it doesn't matter if you're playing junior college, doesn't matter if you're playing D1, D2, D3, NAIA. That's all a part of the transfer portal. So, like some players are better off trying to go just get into a junior college rather than, trying to get signed straight from like a AAU team or something like that. So, the transfer portal has really changed things a lot as far as the landscape. Combined with the transfer portal was like the COVID years as well, because there's certain players, even now they got their years from COVID. Like they got extra years. So we got players that were playing, instead of playing 4 years and then graduating, players got like 6 years and, be able to get extensions, So that also had a real big effect on the recruiting as a whole as well.
Yes, sir. So we got transfer portal, AAU, recruiting, the landscape changing, COVID holding kids back or allowing kids to hold back. It helped some people that had injuries. I know my little bro had 2 knee surgeries.
Yeah.
He freshman year of college. And so it helped him
Yeah.
because COVID happened, the knee surgeries happened. So it was kind of like all like a terrible event, but a good thing if he still wants to play.
Yeah.
He's still recovering now with his knee, and he doesn't know if he still wants to play yet, but he has 3 years eligibility still because of COVID.
Yeah. No, like I said, I'm all for the players. I'm on the players' side of, get as many years as possible, Like I said, it hurts. It sucks for the guy that, like I said, is trying to come in at the bottom, like a freshman, like the incoming freshman class. It hurts them that there's older classmen that are still holding on to those scholarships. But again, I think for the athlete that is at the school, like you need as much time and like the resources from the school and being in college, like you need time to develop. I think even like the 4-year window, usually the rule was you have 5 years to play 4 years. Like you could play 4 years, but you have 5 years of like schooling and eligibility to go to school. So that's where you have like the red shirt year or the gray shirt year. And, people would use, like I said, 5 years to play for. But, like if you can play 4, 5, 6 years, or even just be in a program where you're still developing. And I think that would help the athlete, like on both sides, on the athletic side and the academic side, because I'm sure they can spread out that workload throughout that, that process. Like managing being a full-time athlete and being a full-time student and trying to cram all that in and finish at a 4-year mark, that's pretty tough. So, I'm all for players getting more time and to be able to develop and finish.
Yes, sir.
But there's other options like like the overseas route where you've seen like LeVar Ball, like I guess it really started with like Brandon Jennings, like way back in the day. He was like the first player to really like skip college and go overseas, and that kind of opened up the door to like highly talented players like starting to think, why would I go to college? I can just start playing like pro ball straight away and get that experience. And, there's guys like Jeremy Tyler from San Diego, from back in the day. I remember he did it like, it was just like right after Brandon Jennings, where he left high school like his junior year. And, people were like that's dumb. You need to, you're supposed to finish high school, go to college, like take those traditional steps to get to the league. And he got drafted by the Warriors. He played in the league for a few years, still playing professionally, like overseas. But again, like that was like the start of where you start seeing these alternative routes.
Welcome to Game Within a Game podcast, featuring former pro basketball player, trainer, and coach, Marquis Navarre. The podcast that talks all things basketball, but also that game played by us all, that game called life. See, being great at this game ain't easy. It takes parents, coaches, mentors, guidance to navigate the ups and downs. On Game Within a Game, Marquis speaks to the athlete, the student, the player, the parent, the trainer, and fans alike. From connections to making connections, stories and more. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify and Instagram, and of course, comment, like, share. Game Within a Game podcast. Game Within a Game podcast. With the one and only Marquis Navarre. Thanks again for tuning in to Game Within a Game podcast with Marquis Navarre.
Yeah. Happy Thursday.
Yes, sir. Episode 12. Let's dive right into it. We chopped it up a bit in the intro to the intro, if you will. But AAU recruiting. You have a son. AAU basketball, the climate, the landscape has changed. And then you got recruiting, how colleges are even looking at players now. And even if they are looking at high schoolers over transfer students and all that. Your thoughts on, first, the AAU landscape as it is now and how that affects recruiting?
Well, as the AAU recruitment now, like the landscape is totally different than, like I said, when I played. And the difference is, like, there's so many other pathways to get there. And I see that coaches are now, with the transfer portal has really changed things. We got players that are already playing college, already have that experience. And that's where the coaches are looking for, compared to, trying to find like the young talent that they're going to grab early and develop him for like a 4-year, 5-year plan. Now they're actually allowed to get players like on a year-to-year basis, like it's almost like video game style. Like you said, when you were a kid, when you're like, man, I'm trading players, and now you can, like, that's what college is like now. It's like the NBA in a sense, where there's so many different moves that are happening from season to season. So, so with AAU, where that used to be the main point of contact to find the next young talent, now that's not the option anymore. Now they're looking for guys that are already in the system.
Yeah, because of social media and the eyeball test, if you will, like everybody look, how often do I see them, and the highlight reels and all that, and that kind of getting advertisers to the individual players before they even get the quote unquote, I guess, proper success of the actual sport that they are playing. So before they even reach the pinnacle, if you will, or even peak, even reach their own peak, they're getting paid. So do you think, as a parent and a coach, I mean, if at the end of the day it's to build a career and a life, obviously, is it more so focusing on what's the fastest way I can get paid, or is it still develop, and there is that you can peak here, you can get, there are still levels to make, or is it just, what's the what can I teach this kid to show online that he can get a check real quick or get recruited the fastest? Like, how do you kind of navigate that world?
Um, yeah. So you're just saying like the difference between actually like a player who is already kind of like a pro, like he
Yeah,
is like titled like a pro, and or compared to like a kid who is still developing his skills and he's trying to get to that pro status, but he has an opportunity to already to get
yeah.
paid
It's like you have
already.
two different worlds now of kids. You got kids that still play the game for the love of the game, and they got that dream of playing college and going 4 years and all that. They still have that normal path. Then you got the kid that's like, yo, I'm good now. How can I get paid? Like, I can ball out now. I can do all this, that, and the other. I'm the best in my city, whatever it is. And they have a whole different path. Like, how do you navigate those two worlds?
Yeah, well, the player that is trying to get paid now, he still needs to he needs to have the education that the institution would teach you, you know, like, and that's how to be professional. You know, you at the end of the day, like, um, if you have professional skills on the court, you also have to back that with professionalism off the court, and that's probably the key thing for the players to learn, because some players who are not professionally skill wise, or they don't act professionally like through their character yet, then they shouldn't be taking those routes of like trying to get the money, because again, um, they're not going to utilize the money right. They're not going to like use that pathway the right way. It's actually might lead them. They're obviously going to be going the wrong way because they don't fit the mode. But the players that do fit the mode, they definitely like they have to be, like I said, professional on the court, but also off the court. So being taught actually how to maximize those opportunities.
And I think you have a unique approach and experience because inadvertently, obviously, you told your story in the first episode about. I mean, everybody knows from Oceanside, like you clearly D1 recruit. I'm saying, boom, highly skilled at your age at that time in Oceanside in California, period. But you did have to take a different route to get to D1. You did have to take a different route to reach your dreams of pro, right?
Yeah.
Now, D2 is kind of the new D1 for these kids. So in a way, they got to kind of take your approach on purpose. So with having to do that, obviously not intentionally, but you still made it, you grinded, you learned the ups and downs, and you got better. Kids that have to take that route purposely now, because D2 is kind of like the D1, a lot of coaches are saying that because D1s are using the transfer portal, etc. What is your advice to them? And not to be discouraged, but to look at this as a journey that can still get them to their goal, but it's just a different world.
Yeah. I think the point of difference now, like if with hindsight teaches me, and if I could go back with the knowledge I have now, or what I tell players now, is to just understand when you're chasing a dream to start off with, that you're like, if college is your dream, that college is an academic institute. So like what my roadblock that I kept facing was the classroom part, you know, getting my GPA to the right spot, you know, getting the SAT score and things like that, because I was putting all my eggs in one basket as an athlete. And because I was skilled and I was talented and I was like dominant on the court, I felt like that was gonna get me where that was gonna open the doors because I was good enough. But not having the understanding that, again, like I'm actually trying to play basketball at an academic institute. So again, I think every player needs to really take that approach and understand that mindset from the beginning, that again, even though you're chasing like while you're chasing that dream, and it is so much focus on the court, like understand to use all your resources, use your brain academically to open more doors, so that the recruiting is like a two-way street now. Like, because I didn't have the academics and just like the know-how, like recruiting for me was just a one-way street. Like I was just trying to find a scholarship or hoping someone would offer me a scholarship based off my skills. But if I was what I know now is like, if I had my academics the right way, I could have just went applied to any other school and then said, hey, I'm great at basketball as well. You know, I could have been recruiting on both sides. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the player has more leverage,
Yeah.
because you can utilize not only playing overseas, you can utilize playing in the D League, even because some players that play in the D League. You can utilize going to a smaller school and making that smaller school quote unquote a big school for the time you're there, because if your talent is that large and that impactful and you can change a program, you can essentially choose your pick of small schools if you're not getting recruited by the big schools like you desired. So it's kind of like you got a whole lot more leverage, but in a way, going back to that point of the smaller schools, should these big time players and these players that normally back in, say, 10 years ago would be getting recruited by the Kentuckys, the Dukes, and all that, but now because of the transfer portal, because of NIL and all that, should they focus more on these small schools that nobody probably was thinking about? But hey, man, maybe go to them with that leverage. Like, look, this is my talent. This is what I did. This is what I can do for your program. Give me a scholarship, and I promise you, man, you won't regret it. Like that kind of leverage. You think those top players have that kind of leverage with the small schools?
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think that's the direction where we're going in. Again, I see more and more top players going to the quote unquote non-big schools, and I think that that's the way to do it, because again, that gives the player more power. It empowers the players. You know, it gives them more recognition. You know, when they go to a program, again, it can sometimes a player gets overshadowed by the name of the program, and now this gives player kind of like I said, that shared responsibility, but that shared, you know, ownership, and like, yeah, I'm a part of this program. And the more that the players feel that the programs are giving back to them and pouring into them and they're a part of it, I think that's going to be inspiring for everyone involved. And it's going to be inspiring for the next line of kids to see, yeah, I want to be able to start my own wave. Like, I don't have to like always take this route. I can always create something myself. And that just creates parity, you know, from like across the board for college basketball and just across the board, it makes it better.
Most definitely. And then obviously we hear stories of Brennan Jennings, and you mentioned another player out of San Diego as well. You could talk about both of them, but you playing overseas in Australia, and I heard on It Is What It Is, Cameron was bigging up the Australian league, saying it's like the closest league to the NBA. They got a lot of talent up there. He knows some people that plays in that league, so he was bigging them up. But the idea of playing overseas right out of high school, right? If you can go back and knowing what you know, what kind of mindset does that kid have to make that leap?
Oh, man. To make that leap like straight out of high school, and again, it's way bigger than just your skill set. Like it's you know, where you're at like in life. Like, are you responsible enough to actually just do adult things? You know, it's similar to like it's kind of similar in a sense when you go to college, where it's like, now I'm leaving home, I'm independent, but like it's multiplied like by 10 and sometimes 100, depending on which country you actually go to, because you could be going to a completely new country. Like, luckily for Australia, the reason Australia is a great country to play overseas is because it's an English speaking country. Like, everyone speaks the same language. You don't have to worry about that. And it's a pretty honest and safe country, you know? So, you know, as far as getting payments, you know, you're going to, like, if you have a payment plan or you have, you know, a contract, you're going to get paid, you know? And again, but you're also learning how to live a completely different lifestyle, and you're living far away from the rest of your family, where you're on different time schedules. Like, staying in contact with your family is not as easy, and sometimes it could be impossible based on like your training schedule, your game schedule, and the time difference. You know, so again, it's about being like, to be able to be successful, like going over there, you have to be like a real mature young man, because you have to deal with the responsibilities of, getting yourself to practice and showing up on time. But also, you might be homesick. I know there's a lot of other friends who played in different countries. All right, now, like you go to a country where you don't speak the language, like you could be the only person on your team that speaks English, so that could be pretty isolating. A lot of players think about the glory stories about playing overseas and just being able to get paid to play basketball in a different country. But again, like if you don't have anyone that you can talk to outside of the game, you're going to feel pretty lonely. If some countries, they might not pay you on time, like depending on, you might lose the game and they decide not to pay you. So like if you don't have like support over there to help you with that, like, if you don't have the right agent or if you don't have someone legally to kind of help you like negotiate, you're just like over there playing, you're unhappy, your family's over here, and you're not, and you're not getting paid. So again, all this to say is like, to be able to like, to be able to be successful, you have to be like not only a great player, but you got to be mature to be able to deal with the creative challenges that come along with it.
Yeah, it's kind of like in a way, if any kid out there thinks that they're on that level to make that leap from high school, they kind of gotta build that LeBron team now. Get your friends around you now. Get that good group around you, that good core, and even professional advice and professional help around you early. If you know you that dude and you're gonna make that leap, you might as well make it in a manner that's gonna lead you to success. Like you said, if I need all that, lawyers, and make sure, hey, if I don't get paid, who's gonna talk? Maybe you should have some type of idea what country you're gonna go to, learn a little bit of the language, meet somebody down there, a part of a legal team, so that if you get into a little hiccup, you got a native that can kind of talk for you. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. It sounds like you need a LeBron type team and that LeBron mindset. So that's a good blueprint for any kids out there making that leap.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Thanks again for listening to Game Within a Game. This podcast is sponsored by Marquis Basketball. Visit Marquis Basketball on Instagram at Marquis Basketball or call 760-213-4936. If you're a basketball player that wants to improve your game and take it to the next level, or a parent seeking to have your child learn the game the right way, Marquis Basketball is the place to be. The place to grow, the place where basketball dreams become a reality. Message Marquis on Instagram at Marquis Basketball or call Marquis at 760-213-4936. Marquis Basketball, coaching and training for the next generation. Thanks again for tuning in to Game Within a Game podcast. The mind, influence, the circle we keep around us, and whether it's benefiting or hindering our progress. Talk a bit about who we have around us and how that can either elevate our basketball career or diminish it.
Man, I think like I said, it makes or breaks, a player's career, or if they make it or not. I think, again, your circle of influence is so powerful because they're the ones that shape your mindset about the game, essentially, because these are the people that you talk to. These are the people that kind of confirm your ideas and your thoughts, like if you should keep going or if you should stop, or these are people you talk to about the challenges that you face, and you ask them, like, how do and based off of their guidance and based off of their feedback, it's it programs you, So your circle of influence is super powerful, I think, as far as, like you said, the make or break of your career, or like how far it goes or compared to it doesn't. having the right people around you is super important.
Yeah, especially in those dark moments. I know there's a few podcasts that had mentioned mental health, even close to suicide calls and things like that. John Wall is one of them. Many NBA players have talked about it, but most recently, obviously, John Wall and Ricky Rubio both talking about one within the game, stress and mental health, and then also after the game. Athletes can never turn it off, especially athletes that played at the highest level. It's hard for them to turn that competitiveness off. I know Shannon Sharp talked about it as well. Like, you can't turn it off, and if you don't know how to repurpose it, you can end up depressed. You can end up in a mental health crisis and not knowing what to do because all you did was that, and that's your identity. So talk about, I guess, the mental battles, both within the game and after the game.
Yeah. Again, I think that's super important. And I think it's one thing to look at the, like you said, your competitive drive. But again, I think it goes back to your circle of influence a lot of times, and how your circle of influence relates to you. Now, I think a lot of that comes from, like, when you are successful and you have talent and you are great, then again, the people around you become like your cheerleaders in a sense. But again, like, some of them are really only cheering you on based on you doing well, or like, even like I said, my cousin, for example, like, my cousin would tell me, like, even to this day, he's like, man, if you made it to the NBA, I'll be at the games all the time, like, it'd be courtside, I'll be this and that. And I'm like, but you didn't go to my high school games, bro. Like, you didn't go to my college games, but you saying, like, if I made it to the NBA, that you would have been there courtside. So again, like, the people around you start, like, relating to you as the basketball star and the basketball player, and stop relating to you as the person. So, like, trying to hold on to that and, like, trying to, like, hold that up for everyone in your family. Imagine your mom and your dad, your cousins, your best friend, your neighbor, your classmates, like, everyone that is in your circle is like, yeah, you're great because you're a basketball player. They're not really identifying you as the person, the human being. So that's where the problem comes in for these athletes, when the roar of the crowd is gone now, like, when no one is actually cheering your name, then who are you as the person? Like, who still ask you, how you doing today? Like, people who like I said, wanted you to, like, send them tickets, but what if you need help? Are there people like reaching out towards you? So I think that's again, like I said, if you get to a level of, that's where you receive love, that's like, people are giving you your positive reinforcement based off of you performing well on the court. And, like, most of a lot of these players, again, they come from environments and family dynamics where they didn't get this positive reinforcement, like, put into them at home ever. So again, like, basketball was like the only space where you were praised, or you were seen, or you were noticed. So that's where it is. I don't think it's the competitive nature that can't switch off so much. It's like, okay, well, when I'm not competitive, who's still going to show up for me? When I'm not out in the arena like a gladiator, who still is cheering for me? And that's why it's so important, again, that you have people in your circle of influence that are at your games, and they're there for you, the person. Like, they're happy if you score 0 points. They're happy if you score 1,000 points. Like, they're not so concerned about, like, your stats. Like, they're sort of more concerned about, like, you, the person. Like, how are you doing, like, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, yeah, that's
a lot of people don't, I think about that, and that's super deep, man. I think that'd be a good roundtable discussion with athletes, both currently and post career, because I think that is huge, and that's a huge kind of blinders that the family members have, friends have, students within the school have. It's kind of like you get the praise before they even know your name.
Yeah.
Like your actual name,
Yeah.
like who you are. They might not only know your nickname from the court of the field, and it's like they just praise. You're right. They praise that person performing. But when the performance is over, those same people that were clapping probably walk right past you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty deep.
Yeah. That's where, like I said, I think the John Wall situation, like he said, his great saving grace was just having children or having having sons, And again, like I interpret that in two ways. It's like, like I said, there was someone, his kids probably didn't look up at him as John Wall, the NBA like superstar. Those probably like someone just looks at him as dad, like someone I just love you unconditionally, So that was that's what I thought about when I seen the John Wall thing, where it was just like, again, like having your like family and like the people around you that helps you separate you, the basketball player, from like the other things that you actually are off the court. Like I said, a father, a brother, cousin, whatever you are. Your other titles that are actually like hold a lot of value, that might not get the same praise and the recognition, like I said, the Ricky Rubio case, he spoke on about, how the player ate the person, and like I said, Ricky Rubio was like someone who played pro basketball from like a very early age. I don't know, like 12, 13 years old. So, and then, was one of the pioneers from going from overseas, like and coming to the NBA. So I just imagine him just his whole life just being labeled and like looked at and only as that basketball player, and probably didn't have, like I said, that counterbalance of someone like keeping him balanced as a person, like, being able to like step away from the court and leave what you do at the court and step off the court and be like, all right, we still love you, or whatever the case is. So.
No, that's real. There's a quarterback, the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, I believe. As a while ago, I heard him on, I believe it was like The Pivot or something like that. He talked about what you're talking about, where he has people around him that don't even like football. And his family members, and when they talk to him, it's not how was your game, it wasn't good game. It's just they're totally different conversations, and they literally could give a damn. And he said he loves that. And he has a few people like that don't even watch football, have no idea how the game works, but he needs that because all he hears is you're great, football, football, football. And sometimes, a lot of times, off the field, off the court, you just need normal people around you that give a fuck about you.
Yeah. 100%. And like I said, that was something that, like, luckily for me along the way, like I said, I was, I did have people that I met along the way. And again, some people I met on the court, and we actually, like I said, some of my best friends from basketball, but we understood this, like once we step off the court, like we still got to love each other, like who we are as a person. So we can step on the court and we can, like, now we stepping into the battlefield. Like I can hate you now, because we're competing against each other or we're playing together. But again, like once we off, like, dude, let's go get some food. Let's go do these type of things. So, you got to have that balance.
That's a huge thing that unites the athletes and keeps that bond beyond the season, beyond their career. And that makes sense. Like you guys both have that common understanding that, hey, we need love off the court. Like, and you guys both feel the same type of vibe from your family members, your friends. So that's pretty dope. And it kind of exemplifies and kind of gives light to those relationships and why athletes have long-term relationships with their teammates and things like that, and why that bond is so strong. That's pretty impactful, man. I like that. Yes, sir. It's time for GWAG, Marquis Reacts. You know that part of the show where we look at some YouTube videos and Marquis gives his advice, thoughts on it all. So let's get it. GWAG, Marquis Reacts.
If you don't to struggle in practice, you're never going to get better. If you were to watch me train, I'd look as tired as they were, because that's what you're supposed to be. Now, when you're running 17s and you're running sprints, you're not supposed to feel great. You're supposed to be tired, like exhausted. That's the point, you know, and that's what practice is. So I really liked it. I really enjoyed it, because that's the only way you get better is by pushing yourself past exhaustion.
Oh man, Mamba right there. Yeah, I think so important to be able to push past your limits, and like physically, mentally, when you're and even emotionally, like when you're actually training, because again, you're actually preparing to go to a war and a battle against someone else. So like for me, like the trick that I used to do is like I would only start counting the reps like once I hit fatigue, like, or once me and my opponent, like once we both hit like I seen you struggling, I'm struggling. Now that's when I started to count. And I'm just trying to outlast you from that point, you know, like it's the first one to not give up from that point. And if I do that, like at every practice or every training session, then over time, like, that's how I like develop like being able to beat people, just by knowing that once we both hit our pain threshold tolerance, that I just have more to keep going. And I just know that just because that's what I practice. And and you know, every day I practice that during practice, I practice that and like open gym, whatever the case is, like I'm just practicing just being able to have a bigger pain threshold tolerance than you. And yeah, like if you don't put yourselves in that situation, then like you're never going to be able to like overcome all these opponents that you have in front of you, because there's so many different warriors in a sense that are out there on the battlefield, and it's survival of the fittest. So you have to be able to push yourself like to a level that you don't even like further than you think that you can actually go, so that you can able to be in order to be successful.
At that age level, you'll be able to make up any games that you miss. So if you don't play as many games when you're in grades 4 through 8, you're going to make that up once you get into high school with the season, with AAU, with summer league pickup. You're going to get as many games as you need. But if you miss out on skill development during those ages, you can't get that foundational development back. You miss out on those years of that development. So I feel like it's more important at that age group, like don't give up the development days and the skill work in order to play more games.
No, I agree with this 100%. As you talked about like the last episode, like for young players, you definitely have to set the foundation right at an early age. And that's the priority over just playing more games. And again, because if you just start playing games without learning the game and having the foundation right, then you're going to be building bad habits for the future. And those things, you'll be developing those habits for a long time before you even realize that they're bad habits. And then from that point on, you know, your coach and everyone's going to be trying to like fix those bad habits or trying to like teach you those things that should have already been taught. And then you're going to be just kind of always behind the ball, because you're always going to feel like, well, you know, I've been playing basketball for 4 years before, and I thought I was pretty good because I can do X, Y, Z. And then you get to high school and then you realize, oh, like I don't even have the basics down. And so now it's definitely important to prioritize that skill development at an early age. Like I said, for me personally, like I use kind of like a lot of the same coaching philosophies and techniques that I was taught. And, you know, it's just fundamental footwork, ball handling, finishing, and shooting. And I see that I started doing this in the 4th grade. Like I started doing this just every day, and it became natural to me. And like when I coach older players now, like even in high school when I go through that, I can see like if they have the basic steps or not. And it's definitely much harder for players who don't have that foundation to build on their skills if they don't have that fundamental base.
Yeah. Oh, it's time for GWAG Tip of the Week with former pro basketball player, now trainer and coach, Marquis Navarre. Now, some tips, they're for the game. And some tips, they're for the game within the game. Yet all tips seek to adjust that mind frame. So let's get it. GWAG Tip of the Week. GWAG Tip of the Week. Tip of the Week.
For this week's tip of the week, you're going to go work on your circle of influence. So I want you guys to go write down who's in your circle of influence right now. And I want you to do an inventory and make sure that you have the right people in your circle of influence. All right. What those people look like, those people are the ones that are going to support you at the game, no matter if you score 0 points or if you score 100 points. All right. They're going to support you no matter what. All right. This is important to have these people in your corner throughout the process. Now, find out which one of those people are your motivators, which ones are the ones that support you and who you need to talk to when things aren't going well. Identify the people in your circle of influence and their roles in that. Make sure you identify those people who are holding you back as well in that. So that could be people who might not, maybe not giving you the right self-talk or the right reassurance that you need when you're going through struggles. Take inventory of that and write these down because it's important to have the right people in your corner in this process.
Yes, sir. GWAG Tip of the Week. Closing statements, episode 12. We talked about AAU. We talked about recruiting. We talked about the transfer portal. People playing overseas. Kids jumping out of high school to overseas or choosing the new D1, which is D2. Your closing thoughts for episode 12. And, game within the game. Closing thoughts by Marquis.
I think, again, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they said. Like, especially now in the basketball world, there's just so many different ways to approach it. And for me, it's just like you just got to find which one fits best for you, and just like whichever one, they're going to have pitfalls, they're going to have strengths and weaknesses, they're going to have challenges. But again, like just make sure you sit back and you find out which one fits you and what route you want to take with the game, because I think a lot of people might get just caught up in just following the trends or just following, oh, well, this worked for him or this worked for him. I think everyone has a unique like way they can, like there's so many different ways. And from my point of view, like I said, like my son, for example, like my son has like an Australian passport. He has an Italian passport and a U.S. passport. So again, my perspective might be a lot different than most parents because like I don't have to just put all my eggs into the NCAA American route, or just go there. Like there's so many different ways he can, if he was gonna like play basketball and chase that dream. But obviously for people here in America, where it's again like most likely you're going to be looking through this lens, but again, there's so many different routes. Like it doesn't have to be college. It can be NIL. Like I said, there's leagues like the Overtime League, the Overtime Elite League, where like players are getting paid to play basketball, but also getting schooling at the same time. So again, I don't really have the answers right now as far as telling people which way to go. But what I will say is let's do your homework, do your homework and see what all options are available and what options fit you best and your family and the dreams that you want to achieve.
Thanks again for tuning in to Game Within a Game podcast. Be sure to click, comment, subscribe, and share at Game Within a Game podcast on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube. Game Within a Game podcast. Instagram, Spotify, YouTube. Click, comment, subscribe, and share. Game Within a Game with the one and only Marquis Navarre. Thanks for listening.